activity, get the clue, find the millionaire.
Netflix's new reality competition has just wrapped up a couple weeks ago, and the name of the game is $1 Million Secret. The concept is simple. 12 strangers enter a mansion with Peter Serafinovich, also known as the Tick, and they're each given a box. Inside of one of their boxes is $1 million cash. The players must figure out who the millionaire is and then vote them out, after which the money will move into another random player's box. The object of the game is to be the person at the very end who has the money in their box. So the question on everyone's mind is, are you the millionaire? You may have noticed the part of the title that says winning strategy. Well, that's there because this is the first video in a new series where I study reality competitions and their best players to figure out the best way to win. With that in mind, let's get right into the video. $1 Million Secret comes with a few extra steps to keep the game interesting. First, you have your customary challenges. Challenges in $1 Million Secrets will divide the players into teams, which are either randomly assigned or team captain-based drafting. These challenges are usually a test of skill and courage, so sometimes you'll have someone shooting a frisbee out of the sky, and then other times you'll have people picking up semi-weird animals. In the actual show, they had one person picking up a hedgehog and one person picking up a python because somehow these things are equal. The team that wins the challenge goes to the trophy room, where they decide amongst themselves one person on the team to receive a clue about who the millionaire is. On the other side of things though, the millionaire is being given a secret agenda, which is this task they have to complete before a certain time in order to gain their own advantage. The challenges are normally just trying to get other players to do something or doing something yourself without being noticed, but the advantages somewhat vary. Sometimes it's a voting advantage, and a couple of votes can really make the difference about whether or not you go home, but then other times it's a kill shot, which just means you ignore everyone else's vote, and whoever you want to eliminate gets eliminated. Other times the advantage is getting to move the money into another player's box, which actually really does make sense for most of the early game. The trade-off is that if the millionaire fails to do their advantage, then they usually get punished in a severe way.
Gotta be kidding me.
This disadvantage is almost always extra votes against them, but again, that's a make or break decision. Oh, and there's one more thing. Non-millionaire players can also receive their own secret agendas, which can give them advantages like moving the money into another player's box, or... No, that was it. I feel like there should be a much bigger advantage to doing these agendas as a player, because if you're not the millionaire and you get caught doing an agenda, it just makes you look like the millionaire and you're getting voted out. And it doesn't help that these advantages are also coming with disadvantages if you don't complete the agenda. For players, there were two main strategies that we saw this season. Strategy 1 was just voting out the millionaire, and this is the strategy the show seems to intend. You vote out the millionaire, the money moves to random boxes, and you just keep voting them out until it ends up in your box. This strategy is stupid and wrong. Kind of. Strategy 2, first as played by my main man Phil, is to vote out the threats. The logic is, if you know who the millionaire is, you don't necessarily need to eliminate them. You just focus on eliminating people who could be a threat later on, and that way, when you do actually eliminate the millionaire, not only is the money more likely to move into your box, it's also not going to the box of somebody who you know could be an issue. Now, there are the millionaire strategies. If I'm being honest, I don't think anybody on the show had any idea what to do with the money, and spoiler alert, but I think the first millionaire was completely screwed from the get-go. Lauren was the first player to get the money, and she played pretty well considering she had no idea what to expect. Her first agenda was to hug every player, and she did that perfectly fine. However, her second agenda was to slip the titles of a bunch of songs into conversation, and she had to do this in a 2-hour period of breakfast. But when the players completed their challenge and they got their clue, it basically outright told them that the millionaire had to slip song titles into conversation. So miraculously, all the players did remember that somebody was talking about song titles, but they couldn't remember who. After narrowly escaping that night's elimination with her life, Lauren's advantage was to move the money into another person's box. For God knows what reason, Lauren decides that it's a good idea to tell everybody she was the millionaire before the money got moved. I forgot to mention this in my initial recording, but Peter confirms that whenever the money is moved, it can't go back into the box of the person it was moved from. So that's what's informing the decisions of the players from now on. She effectively exposed her entire game, showing people how manipulative she can be and how much of a threat she is. So naturally, she gets voted out. Clearly, the strategy of spilling your guts is not an effective one for the millionaire. Now, the second millionaire was Phil. He was slightly better, but also got boned by being chosen early. Phil chose not to attempt the agenda so as to not draw attention to himself on the first night. People already wanted Lauren out because they knew she was a manipulator, so it made more sense to Phil to just not attempt the agenda because he knew Lauren was going to be receiving enough votes that night that the disadvantage against him didn't matter. This makes perfect sense and seems to be a very sound strategy. If no one suspects you and the disadvantage isn't crazy, there's no reason you have to attempt the agenda. That would work great if not for the absolute narc that is Peter Serafinovich, because he tells all the players that the Millionaire didn't attempt the agenda. It can still work though, because knowing the Millionaire didn't attempt the agenda isn't some huge giveaway. It just tells you that any weird behaviors you might have seen are just players being weird. Phil ends up getting eliminated.
Gotta be kidding me.
The next night after getting caught completing his secret agenda of making 3 people scream. He cleverly accomplishes this by asking 3 people to scream. The screaming obviously drew people's attention, so when a clue came in saying that it was related to a 90s horror movie, everyone automatically registered Scream. That's not true. Only one person somehow registered Scream. I don't know where they found people that don't know about Scream. This is where we run into a huge issue with some of Phil's playstyle. He was stupid with his alliances. When Lauren was up for elimination, it was actually only half the players that wanted her out, not everybody, because the other half wanted out another really strong player whose name is Sydney, and this is somebody Phil had made friends with. When there's a tied vote in this game, they take a revote, and then if that revote is another tie, then they just eliminate whoever the Millionaire voted for. The first vote between Lauren and Sydney was a tie, and even though Phil openly stated that he knew Sydney was a better person to eliminate, he still chose to vote for Lauren because Sydney was his friend. Now that in itself isn't terrible because he was just protecting a strong teammate, but then the next day, when people are accusing him of being the Millionaire, he flips on Sydney. This guy Phil spouts off about how you shouldn't eliminate the Millionaire, you should eliminate the strong players, then he chooses not to eliminate the strongest player, after which he flips and decides, yes, let's eliminate that strongest player, but only now he does decide to do it when he knows she has the majority of the votes.
Gotta be kidding me.
Okay, so what we can learn from Phil is that you don't have to attempt the agenda every time, and if you have the opportunity to eliminate a strong player, you have to take it. An alliance can only get you so far in this game. Now, the third Millionaire, Sam, was just extremely lucky because she got the money at a time in the game where people were completely focused on eliminating stronger players. However, she did present an interesting idea. Act like you're trying to find the Millionaire. Obviously, if you're the Millionaire, you still need to act like a regular player, but if you're not consciously thinking about what you were doing as a regular player, then it can be very difficult to act like it again. She got lucky though because other players started doing things that incriminated them.
I don't know why I didn't mention this earlier, but one of those self-incriminating things was just so stupid. Basically, Peter announces that one of the players was eliminated through a kill shot, and then one of the other players, named Jamie, admits to voting for that person, which makes it look like she was the one who did the kill shot because nobody else admitted to it. Even not being the Millionaire in this situation, there is absolutely zero reason for you to admit to something so incriminating. And for absolutely zero payoff at that.
She got lucky though because other players started doing things that incriminated them, which allowed her to hold on to the money long enough for Corey, another player, to complete his own agenda that moved the money into another random box. That someone else was the fourth Millionaire, Kara. Now, her strategy was just keep quiet and lie about everything. The clue that was given about Kara as the Millionaire was that she had 2 sisters. But this clue wasn't delivered publicly. It was given privately to Sam, who then asked around about people's siblings and then revealed what the clue was. Now when Sam got to Kara and she asked how many sisters she had, Kara didn't actually know what the clue was, but she knew to be wary, so she lied and said she only had 1. Sam was so certain that she wasn't the Millionaire because of one simple lie.
Corey has the money. My soul tells me he has the money. He's the only other person that I know that possibly has 2 sisters.
Kara did absolutely nothing to draw attention to herself, but she still played a strong social game. All she did was be kind to everybody and get them on her side silently. Kara didn't fall into the trap of wanting to show dominance and then getting eliminated for it.
Another editor note, this was kind of the downfall of the player Chris. I get into this more later on in the video, but there's basically a clue that puts it between him and Sam, and the players choose to eliminate Chris because he's been drawing attention to himself to show dominance. So if they have a 50-50 shot at eliminating the Millionaire, you may as well go for the person who seems like a bigger threat anyways.
When it came to the final 4 contestants, they were given a 2v2 challenge where the winning team would then decide who on the other team gets eliminated, and my light just died. Fuck. Kara knew that out of everyone left in the final 4, the player she wanted to go up against the least was her own teammate, Sydney. So, she decides to throw the challenge to get herself and Sydney on the chopping block, begging on her relationship with the other players, Corey and Sam, to get them to eliminate Sydney. To further secure her spot and to build a little bit more trust with Corey, she half confesses to self-sabotaging because she didn't want to go up against Sydney. Although that's true, she did conveniently leave out that she was the millionaire. Now, for the sake of storytelling, I'm not going to tell you who won just yet, because first I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about the final challenge. The final challenge was a weird needle race into deal or no deal situation. Basically, the final 3 players, Corey, Sam, and Kara, had to race against each other to thread 5 needles. The player who came second in the needle race gets to go down to the trophy room first and pick 2 boxes to swap the contents of. However, they will not know what's inside of these boxes. After this, the player who came first in the needle race gets to go down and do the same thing. Once they've done that, their decision is final. All 3 players will return to the trophy room and they open up their boxes. Whoever has the money inside of their box is the winner of $1 Million Secret. What happens in the show is that Corey comes second, so he goes down to the trophy room and decides on this box to swap with. He's initially going to go for Sam, but then he realizes the only reason he suspects her is because Kara told him that she suspected her. So, Corey decides to swap his box with Kara. But if you think about it logically, Sam couldn't have been the millionaire in the first place. While Sam was the millionaire, the group received a clue that narrowed down who the millionaire was to only 2 contestants, her and another player that got eliminated.
This would be the aforementioned Chris.
As previously mentioned, Corey completed a player agenda which moved the money out of Sam's box. And as we learned from Lauren at the beginning of the series, if the money is moved through an agenda, it can't possibly go into the box of the player it was moved from. So for the rest of the game, the only thing we know for certainty is that Sam is the singular player who cannot be the millionaire. When it's Kara's turn to go into the trophy room, she knows that Corey suspects her. But she also knows that he probably doesn't know that she knows that he knows that she knows that he knows that Sam isn't the millionaire. Let me try that again. Kara knew that Corey would suspect her for being the millionaire, but she pretended that she was confident that he thought it was Sam. Corey swaps his box with Kara because he knows she's the millionaire, but he doesn't think she's aware that he knows this.
So, he thinks she won't swap the boxes back.
In the end though, Kara outplays Corey and takes back the $1 million, becoming the very first winner of $1 Million Secret. Either that or they both pick randomly, but this makes for a better narrative, so I'm going to go with that. Now, before moving into the actual winning strategy, I have some issues with the format of $1 Million Secret that I think I should address. Number 1, the show hates the millionaire. So many of the clues basically entirely give away who the millionaire is or what their agenda was, and on top of that, so many of the agendas are just way too difficult to complete compared to how little of an advantage it is and how big of the penalty is if you don't complete it. Number 2, the show is just way too chance-based. I'm sorry, but it's one thing to move the money into random players' boxes, that's perfectly fine. But at a certain point, they start giving random players clues, and the amount of chance necessary is just cheapening the skill that's required to play the game. Number 3, and this is the big one, kill shots have to go. It's just, you go through the whole voting process and then it's all ignored because of a kill shot. It's way too powerful of an advantage and needs to be limited to at most once per season. Also, I think it needs to be handled exclusively like the 7th episode of this season. Basically, the way it worked was the kill shot would only go through after the millionaire had survived the original vote. But more importantly, it didn't invalidate the original vote. It just eliminated a second person on top of the first person who got voted out. If all of these issues were addressed for a potential second season, I think this show has potential to be great. The issue just remains that the show feels extremely derivative of The Mole and The Traitors. Obviously, there is no singular winning strategy, but if we take some of the tactics of the best players of this season, then I think we can put together a playstyle that's worthy of taking home the $1 million. First things first, be quiet. Don't give away too much about yourself, and don't draw attention to yourself, because it puts you on people's radar. If people don't know who the millionaire is, then they're going to default to voting out the strongest players, and you do not want to be the first person in their minds. Secondly, engage with other people's conversations. You want to build rapport with people early on, but you don't want to establish yourself as a leader, because leaders always get targeted. Third, be aware of your behavior. You want to be consciously aware of how you're acting, because if the money comes to you, you want to be able to behave the same way. Fourth, if you figure out who the millionaire is, don't tell anybody. Stick with Phil's strategy of voting out the strong players. Being the millionaire at any point puts a huge target on your back. So by voting out the strong players and not voting out the millionaire, the money doesn't move as much and it's less likely to come to you until the very end. Fifth, do not attempt every agenda. If players are already targeting each other, there's no reason to risk an agenda that could divert attention to you. The only time you should ever risk an agenda is if you have the money and you can confidently move it to another person's box without getting caught. Or if your name's up for elimination and you need to secure yourself. But remember, the clues often give away what the agenda was, so you should never attempt one unless you're ready to defend yourself. Sixth, avoid deflecting too hard onto other players if the money isn't moving. If a clue comes in that puts you on the other player's radar, then you should not try to deflect too hard onto a specific player, because one of two things will happen. 1. They still think it's you because they think you're being defensive and they vote for you anyways. 2. The person you accused gets eliminated and now people know it's not them, so they come back to you. But if you did complete an agenda that means the money's going to move, it's okay to deflect because once the money does move, people are going to be focused on trying to figure out who the millionaire is. If it's a decision between getting eliminated and exposing that you're a stronger player than people think, the choice is pretty obvious. 7th, practice lying in the mirror. You want to craft an elaborate fake story and a bunch of fake facts beforehand so that you can share those. And you always want to think very carefully before sharing any real stuff about your life. A lot of the clues that come in are telling people about your real life. 8th, and finally, pretend to be slightly dumber than you actually are. Even if Kara wasn't doing it intentionally, she outplayed Corey by letting him think he outsmarted her. Kara's entire playstyle was based around letting people underestimate her. But by extension, you also have to be wary of other players and not underestimate them. Structure your game around gauging other players while allowing them to think they have accurately gauged you. Combining all of these steps should create the perfect blend of inconspicuous and cunning that comprises a winning strategy. Million Dollar Secret pleasantly surprised me. Netflix churns out so many reality shows, and honestly, a lot of them do struggle to find an identity for themselves. But Million Dollar Secret was extremely unique and engaging. With some cleanup, I think it definitely has potential to shine in the second season if it does get one. I don't proclaim to be some kind of social strategy genius, but I was really good at Among Us during its heyday, so I think I'm only like half talking out of my ass when I'm telling you how to win a reality game show. If by any slim chance somebody does actually end up using my strategy to win a future season of Million Dollar Secret, then I am humbly requesting 200,000 of those dollars. It's a customary 20% tip, and hey, if you're from the United States, consider it a tariff. And if you're not from the United States, or if you are, please consider subscribing. Please. Please, I make videos. Please. Please. Please.
It's funny, as I'm recording this, it's actually the 13th anniversary of the Glee episode where the whole Pleek thing comes from, so thanks Glee. One of the biggest criticisms on my last video was that my audio was all over the place because I was holding my mic, so I have elected to hold a karaoke mic instead and play with that. It's not recording. Anyways, thanks for watching and I hope to see you again.